Howdy, it's tubalcain once again. Welcome back to the shop. The project today is to refinish this Bridgeport vise. Now, you might have seen my video several months back, and that was in the fall when I went to Arnfest and I bought a piece of iron. And do you remember that was 50 bucks for this used Bridgeport vise? It's a 6-inch. Now, I didn't realize it was missing the jaws when I bought it, and I had a man load it for me. I didn't know that till I got it at home. It's pretty worn out, but it's going to be functional and, you know, good enough for who it's for. Now, I had a 6-incher in the past, and I gave it to my brother when he bought his milling machine. My milling machine came with two vices, the 5-inch and the 6-inch. Well, I deemed the 6-inch too heavy because, and I just weighed these. This vise weighs 62 pounds, and then the base, which I seldom use, was 18 for a total of 80 pounds. That's a lot of iron to move around. Well, the little 5-inch, I just love this vise, and it's big enough for most of the work that I do. It weighs 41 pounds, 16 base, and for a total of 57. So it's 23 pounds lighter. And so this one is the subject of today's video. And this Bridgeport vise, I don't know why it does not have the Bridgeport logo on, but the one I gave to my brother and most of them that I have seen have this wonderful script Bridgeport logo, and really that's the reason I bought this, because I was enamored with it, foolishly. Here's the swivel base for the smaller one. It weighs 16 pounds, and why is it that it only weighs 2 pounds less than the big one? I do not know. But the other thing I don't like about these, so if you've got it bolted on to your vise, it's really quite a bit of weight to be thrown around, especially when you're as scrawny as I am. The other thing is it raises the vise up 1 5/8 inch higher off the table of the milling machine, and then sometimes you got to drop the table or you got to allow for that extra thickness. But another funny thing is that when I bought this, and that was shown on that other video, almost immediately a man emailed me and said, "Hey, I got an extra one of the swivel bases." I forgot his name, and I thanked him so much for making that offer, but I do already have the swivel base. Well, why do I have it here? Because when I gave my brother the 6-incher, he said, "I don't want that base, throw it away." Well, I didn't throw it away, and there it is. Now, I'm going to paint this vise, and I did paint this base originally, but that's probably 10 years ago, and that was just regular Ace Hardware, I think they call it machinery gray. Well, this is the color that I'm going to paint it. It's a little bit darker gray. That's a test sample of it, and here's the can of paint from, well, it's from Ace, but it's Rust-Oleum, and it's called Dark Gray Gloss. I feel a bit like Shop Dog Sam with this turntable here, but I used to use this 40 years ago for painting those micrometers that I used to make. You can still see the paint on there. But it's handy for spinning this around and doing some of the work because the thing weighs so blame much. But again, as I said, the jaws are missing. So apparently somebody used it for some time without the jaws, because this large hole here was pretty well packed with chips. And I haven't really cleaned this yet, other than dumped it upside down to get some of the chips. There were plenty of chips on it when I bought it. Now, I'm not going to totally restore this, because I used the word restore one time. Somebody got mad at me and said, "You didn't restore that thing, you painted it." Well, alright, then it's just strictly cosmetic. I'm not restoring it. But I want to show you a couple things on this vise before I start taking it apart. What a beautiful pile of iron, huh? Well, I made a little modification on this one a couple of years ago, and what I did here was to drill and tap a hole right here so that I could put this stop on there. So I simply tighten that up for repeated work. It's just a work stop, is all that is. Why am I showing you that? You'll see in a second. Secondly, I have always loved these Bridgeport vises because they have a handle on them. Most vices do not, so that's just beautiful. Well, why am I showing you that? Because my whole idea was I'm going to modify this big old rusty one so that it will accommodate the Edge Pro Stop Vise mount. Now I've had this for I think about 4 or 5 years. Edge Technology gave it to me, and thank you again for that. But these were really made for Kurt type vices. And this bar here is designed to bolt on the back. Well, look, this is all rounded. And the spacing here on these two holes does not match up with these holes. So I thought, well, one of the things I'm going to do before I paint this, I'm going to mill off the end of this and drill some holes or whatever I got to do so I can mount this work stop. And you'll see progress on that later on in the video. But wait, stop. Take a look at this. Someone many years ago apparently did the exact same thing I did, only on the other side of the vise. There is a hole that's drilled and tapped, and it looks like they milled a little bit here. I'm assuming that was for a work stop, but that's just an assumption, an educated guess. Well, now look on the back side. This has been also milled at one time. So they saved me the trouble. But you know, I just discovered that minutes ago. So the whole idea here is that I will drill some holes or whatever I have to do, either in this casting or on this piece of aluminum here, and then the Pro Stop will be mounted. See, that screws on like that into this position. So I was kind of excited about that, and for that matter I still am excited. Moves pretty smoothly. There is slop and wear right here, so I will take that up. I'm sure there's wear on the thread and on the brass nut, but do I care? No, it's good enough as it is. And it came with a crank that's lived a hard life, as you can see, and it's an extra large crank. I believe it will afford me leverage to tighten it down without having to hammer on it, but someone's had their way with this with a hammer as well, and I believe it was Bubba or Bubba's son. It would be nice to surface grind this, but of course I don't have a surface grinder, so this is just all going to be cleaned up with abrasives and a wire brush and whatever, and a file, because there's plenty of nicks on it that have to be addressed, and then cleaned in here and painted, then reassembled. And of course I'm going to make that set of jaws, and the jaws are going to be soft jaws made out of aluminum. The original ones of course would have been hardened, and I tell you what, as I talked about this in the previous video, this Dave Morse here contacted me and he says, don't go to the bother of making them, go to monsterjaws.com, and I did. And for about 20 bucks I could get blank jaws without holes drilled in them, or in some cases I think they sell them for the Kurt vices. Also, speaking of Kurt, notice that on this vise it's a standard vise with the screw literally in the middle of the jaw, the sliding jaw, and you can see where it terminates here. So all the pressure is right in the middle. Does it cause some tipping? Yes. Is it efficient and putting the pressure where you want it? Yes. But this is probably, I said, a 50-year-old vise, and they hadn't even invented the angle lock vise, as far as I know, and all of the knockoffs that use that principle. So this is an old school vise, but yet I'm an old school type of guy. A real quick update here. I bought this vise last December, so it's exactly a year old, and I'm loving it. It has the lithium battery. I don't work for DeWalt, but I've had some of their other drills. I could not have hated them anymore. Not the drill part itself, but the horrible batteries that had a 15-minute life. And I had really given up on battery drills, and I went back to using corded drills because of that. But now the batteries, when I pick this thing up to use it, and I don't use it every day. See, that was the problem with the other ones. And the batteries were always dead, but not until you got to the top of the ladder. All right, I'm going to knock this roll pin out of here. Enough talking, huh? Should take it off the turntable. I'll never find that. Got some spacer washers there. I don't know where this vise came from, but Bubba had his way with it. But then again, there's a Bubba in every shop. You can see the wear here. But I expected that. Wow, look at that damage inside the bore as well. I don't know what happened there, but there's nothing I can do to fix it. Okay, let's have a look at the bottom here and see how much damage there is. Not too bad there, the usual scratches. Look at here, you just wonder what somebody did. That's prying. It looks like maybe the vise was stuck to the table and they just pried the heck out of it, although they look like hammer marks, so that'll all have to be dressed out. This, of course, is the hole for the guide pin on the swivel base. Now, I had always wondered what these holes were for, but what they do is allow access to the 3 holes, I shouldn't say holes, yeah, I guess holes, for the gibs that hold the movable jaw on. So if you look here, I can get one lined up. It's just an access hole for the cap screw. And I need to move the jaw into different positions because there's a total of 3 of them on each side. I'll do all that off camera. Well, there's no wear on the gibs, but why would there be? They're hardened steel. So maybe there'll be a little wear under here, but I kind of doubt it. Now that jaw should lift off. Yes, good fit. Nice fit. Let me run that screw out of there. Now, you know this is a left-hand thread. Doesn't look to be worn in any particular spot. However, I would suppose the wear would be in the nut, and there is a brass nut in here. I don't intend to take it out. And there's the oiler on the side, and the brass nut is held in by what I understand a pin, and there's the pin right at the end of my thumb. And Yeah, it goes all the way through. It's not a blind hole, so that could be driven out if a fella had to get that brass nut out of there. Like I say, I'm not going to do that. That didn't help any when chips got in there and then back on the thread. That would cause wear. The jaw isn't in too bad a shape. It's got a couple pecks, but why wouldn't it? And really no damage up here, which is kind of surprising. So now it's a matter of cleaning up, and I believe I'll probably start with this movable jaw, dressing it with a file, and then on emery cloth just sliding it back and forth to clean it up as well as I can. It's a nice casting. Gray iron, I believe. It's mighty cold outside here in northern Illinois in December, so I'm going to have to do all this in the basement. I would love to take it out in the garage or even out in the yard and give it a good wire brushing, but that's not going to happen in this kind of weather, and it's just about Christmas. I've been working on this for over 2 hours and it's starting to look good. It's just about ready for paint. I got all of the grease off of it and I've been cleaning this. You can see there's no more rust on it. And I'm going to take this, really what amounts to almost a brand new file, and dress it like this a little bit. Remember, there's no getting out the low spots. We're going to have to live with the low spots, and there are a lot of them. We just need to get rid of the high spots. I'm not sure they show up there, but you can see what this jaw face looks like, that because they used it without a jaw apparently for a long time. That's why all these nicks are here. Which it's kind of like a man wearing overalls running around without underwear on. It's kind of sickening, but that's the way Bubba operated. So I've dressed this also a little bit. I'll spend a little more time doing this, really what almost amounts to draw filing it, and then take this Simmons stone, and I'm going to work that just a little bit too, in a circular motion. That'll just get the high spots off, and then that's all I'm going to do with it. I'm going to mask it down and proceed to paint it. I've cleaned up the screw and it looks quite good, really. Except for this, of course, which does not affect anything except, it makes a fellow mad. Then I got to start on the movable jaw, which I haven't touched yet. I'm trying to dress up the bottom side here, and I still don't know what somebody was doing here. At first I thought they were pry marks, but those are hammer marks. But why would you be hammering right there and not on the other side? But the point being here, I'm going to dress the high spots as best I can. And that'll take quite a while, I think, although the metal isn't all that hard. I have keys. I made those. Those are in stock. Been in stock here. But of course it's not going to fit in there because it's peened over, so I will dress that also. I hope I don't lose any of the accuracy. The other side is not that bad. That is over here. And it appears they didn't use keys. This is a funny thing about Bridgeport. I don't know why it is that they use a number 832 screw. It's just like a tiny little screw, and I got to clean those threads up because the screws will not go in. And I won't put these on until the very end because it's hard to move a vise around when you got the keys in there. So anyway, that is my project right now, and that's going to take a little while. And when that's done, then I am ready to mask it and paint it. When examining this keyway, it was almost as if someone with malice toward everyone decided, I'm going to peen this over and try to close that up. And they partially succeeded. And as I pulled out this Blue Point hammer, I got angry. I haven't used it in, I guess, years, but you've seen these plastic-coated hammers. If you could find a Blue Point truck, would they redeem that for me? Because I've had a lot of these go bad. I don't know. Well, you know what a pillar file is? Well, of course you do, but for the 10 of you out there that do not, you know, they always got to swear. A pillar file is straight here. It's not tapered. You know, most files are tapered. And it's got a safe edge. This is a safe edge. So finally, I had to look. It took me 15 minutes to find this. I knew I had one. Why am I telling you all this? So now I will work on this slot a little more. I'm only halfway done. Okay, I've been working on this for 30 minutes. Now the only reason I made this video is this, at my estate auction when I'm taking my long dirt nap, somebody doesn't buy this and then say, holy mackerel, what kind of guy was that tubalcain that he would beat on a vise like that? So I am declaring to the world, after I'm gone, that I did not do this. Alright? So finally I got it to fit. And it was no easy job in the end. I had another little pillar file. Where did I put it? I got so many files out here. And I got to find a shorter screw now. Or cut this one off, which is no easy job. Well, it is an easy job. It's just one more thing to do. But, where was that other file? Yeah, there's another pillar file with two safe edges. But in fact, it seemed to work best to get in there with this tiny little broken off on the end. I didn't do that either, by the way. Needle file. And finally got it down. So, new screw here and a little more dressing here and then I'm done. As I was searching for that 832 screw, a little bit shorter, I did find one by the way. But of all things, now I'm checking to see how old you people are that watch this. I bet you're all about my age. But do you remember pill boxes like this? That's filled with screws. That was out of the selection that I just showed you. So here was Dr. Moyer's in Sandwich, Illinois, but it does have an area code, so it's probably, you know, that's after what, 1960 or something. Oh no, it is 1969, isn't it? So in 69, you know, Mr. Teal had to take one of these after each meal. Would Mr. Teal still be living? Would Dr. Moyers be living? The masking is done and it's ready for the paint shop. Now in here I just use a couple flat washers with a bolt holding them together to mask that hole off. A couple bolts in those threaded holes there so I do not get paint into the threads. Everything else is masked and they're ready to go. And then I start on this. I've done the easy part, got the bottom all cleaned up, blew the holes out, degreased it, dressed it, and so on. Now I have to deal with the nasty looking side, and I'm going to lay it on some abrasive cloth on this good flat surface here and see what I can do with it. This is a roll of 3M abrasive 240 grit. I've had it since the dawn of time. And it's somewhat water damaged, but I tore off a strip. This might be too fine for what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to lay the jaw on here and work it. Now this plate here, this aluminum plate, it may look like a piece of scrap, and I guess in the way it is, but it is cast aluminum, and I bought this 35 years ago as a match plate. And match plates from one of the big pattern suppliers, I forgot, Master I think it was. They were quite expensive, but they are ground flat. Now you can see the tooling mark, but yet they were made very flat. Not as flat as a surface plate, but we'll see if this does any good at all. Probably too fine, so I might have to. So my idea here is I want to work this back and forth, if it doesn't wrinkle on me. And I've got it clamped down here. That was a bit of a failure, mainly because this is too fine for the initial part anyway. So what I'm going to do here, you know, I save these 6 by 48 inch belts when the glue fails. And, you know, if you have a batch of these around that is you know, they've been sitting on your shelf for 5 or more years. You know, you put them on there and bam, they explode. They actually explode. I think you all have been experienced with that, I'm sure, if you have a belt sander. But anyway, taking a few strokes with the blue paper only reveals how bad it is. How could there be tens of thousands of hammer marks on it? Well, because it's been in use for years, but I mean, it really is bad. It's not going to look good no matter what I do, unless it was surface ground, and it's not going to get that. And you don't need to offer me that, you know, some people are going to say, hey, I can do that. No, this job is going to be done. This vise will never be a real good vise. It's going to be a rough vise, but it's going to look better than what I started with. So I'll try this, although the 6-inch width here is a little bit shy. Well, this is 6 inches exactly as this is, so it's, well, let's see what happens. Hey, this is fun. What a revelation. It's getting shiny, so all of the bumps and damage is now shiny. It's not going to get much better than that, so I'll see you in an hour. Well, it's a half hour later, as I predicted. The sides cleaned up fairly well, but as predicted on the top, you know, it's not very good, but that's what it is. We're never going to get those tooling marks out, or those pits. Well, they're more than pits, you know. What are you going to do with something like that? So that's it. That's as far as I am carrying this. There's no point in going any farther because it's still going to be a usable vise. So I'm going to degrease this real well, and then when the paint is dry, reassembly.